Welcome back to Bloody Besties with your hosts, Ruby Wild
and Melissa May.
All right. I know I gave you the same topic for 2 weeks in a row, but give me something new.
All right, this is more of love in season of Valentine's Day. Do you know the origin of XOXO?
No, I only know that X means kiss and O means hug.
Alrighty. Well, back in the 1700s, when people were mostly illiterate, documents were signed with a simple X. It's believed that the symbol represented Christ on the cross, which in turn meant faith and fidelity. As a show of devotion, people would then kiss the X, and over centuries, the X evolved into a smooch. It's not known how the O came to signify a hug, but some suppose it's simply because, like the X, it was also easy to write. People say that maybe it looks like arms circling.
That's what I always thought. Like it
Into
looks
a
like
hug.
looks like a hug.
It does. Or that Jewish immigrants used the O to sign documents. So they were saying the Christians used the X's to sign documents, and the Jewish used O's to sign documents because it was just simple.
I could see that. Okay.
O.
Every time I see that now, I'm going to be like, oh. Well, because we left you on such a bummer last week, we're going to go ahead and give y'all some closure this time. In 1985, Arlington, Texas, Terry McAdams was 22 when she was baking a heart-shaped cake for her fiance while he was out of town. And then she was going to put it in his fridge so that way when he came home, he would open his fridge and see the heart-shaped cake. Isn't it adorable? Well, she called her sister from his house and told her, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go home. I'm going to relax, just wait for him to show up. But she never left his house. Someone had broken in through the sliding door that connected to one of his bedrooms, and the intruder beat her, raped her, murdered her, and left her. She was found by a maintenance worker in the corner of the bedroom, having died from blunt force trauma that the suspect inflicted. Yeah. So police were on the hunt for who could have killed this UT graduate who was described by her family as fun and full of life and a friend to everyone, and she lit up a room. When processing the crime scene, they found a cigarette butt that was recovered because neither of the couple smoked. So out of place. You always collect it. In addition, they did process Terry for sexual assault evidence and they held on to it. Her fiance had been documented as being out of town, which we said, which was the entire reason she was at his house delivering the cake. And he was alibied out. So who did it? It would take almost 40 years for police to have their answer. They had kept the evidence in her case, hoping one day technology would improve enough to give her family answers, and it worked. The Arlington police reached out to FBI investigative genetic genealogy team, and they worked to extract the DNA from her samples. Through either Ancestry or 23andMe, both were reported. There were conflicting reports. They found a distant relative who was young at the time of the murder, like would not have been cognizant of what was happening. And when they traced back the lineage from that relative, they determined the murderer was a man named Bernard Sharp. He was a convicted sex offender who lived in the area of the murder at the time. He actually had been questioned at the time because of his proximity and his proclivities, but they didn't have enough to actually make him a suspect at the time. He was just person of interest. But unfortunately, no one would be brought to justice in the case because just 9 months after Terry was murdered, he attacked again. This time he killed his estranged wife, Denise, who was 28, and her best friend, Deborah De La Torre, who was 24. And then he also shot and wounded Denise's cousin.
God.
The cousin ran from the house for help, saying, he's shooting everyone. She didn't know that he had already turned the gun on himself and shot himself to death that November. He was never associated to any crime through CODIS because it didn't officially launch until the 1990s. And since 1985, and having killed himself in 1985, the DNA was never uploaded. The family is grateful for the closure, and the police never gave up on finding Terry justice. So, I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Not like happy, but.
Wonder if he knew that the boyfriend was out of town, the fiance was out of town, or if he just watched the house all the time.
I don't know.
So weird.
Yeah. And like to just find an open slider.
Yeah.
Lock your doors, people.
Yeah.
It's not her fault, though.
No.
It wasn't her house. It's not her fault.
Correct.
Moving on, in 1991, there was another tragedy that occurred. Again, this would not be wrapped up for years to come. Police in Florida Keys were notified by a couple of windsurfers who found a body off a dirt road in an area known as the Horseshoe on February 15th at around 8:15 a.m. The woman had been found nude, face down. She had been raped and strangled with her own bikini top, and it appeared that she had fought off her attacker. The rest of her clothing was left nearby. Police needed to figure out who their Jane Doe was and who killed the young woman. They put out a description to the media in hopes for a lead. She was anywhere from 14 to 25. She was 5'4" to 5'7", 130 to 145 pounds. She had a tattoo of a heart with the word love inside of it on her left shoulder, and a cross with sun rays in the thumb, like in the webbing of her thumb. Do you make sense?
Yeah,
That
I
makes
get it.
sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The part that gets dry all the time.
Yes. Yes. It appeared that she also had stretch marks on her abdomen, which could possibly mean that she had been pregnant at one time. But I'm just going to put the kibosh on that. That was not true. We know this for a fact. She was never pregnant. Sometimes women just get stretch marks. Okay.
You just grow too fast.
Back the F off.
I have stretch marks on my butt from growing too fast.
I don't doubt it for a second on that thing.
I got them in junior high or high school.
Yeah.
Stretch marks on my butt.
It happens. It happens. I grew too fast and my kneecaps just wound up out of place.
My Achilles tendons. I had to take medication. I had to go to the nurse every day in elementary school to take the pills. My legs were going.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I had to tape my kneecaps into place.
Oh. So it's such a large age gap, 14 to 25, you said?
Yeah, because you're still in the developmental age. So not everything is complete at that point. After the age of 25, pretty much your skeleton is what it's supposed to be. And so to age progress people, especially because people go through puberty at different rates and things like that, they try to bracket it on the large side. Same thing with like time of death, because people's body compositions are so different. You can't have a standardized time of death.
Varied or depending on the environment.
Mm-hmm.
But
in fact, in some places, like one of the ones I used to work at, they don't even take liver temperature anymore because it's such an arbitrary collection.
It's just weird that nothing in your body changes from 14 to 25 to where they would be able to narrow that down.
I think it does change. It just changes at different rates for people. So like, it's kind of like, think about when your teeth fall out as a kid. Like some people start losing their teeth at, I don't know. I don't have kids, but
I just know periods came different as a kid.
Yes.
Like I was so excited. Like, oh, friend's got it. Where's mine?
I got mine on my 13th birthday at school. Yeah. No, I was not excited. But yeah, like teeth falling out, like how some people still have baby teeth when they get into junior high. Yeah. It's things like that. Like you just do things at different rates. And that's why they have the broad age range just in case. But yes, so she was never pregnant. People just have stretch marks. Back off. She also had short brown hair, light colored eyes, and her ears were pierced 4 times each. So she had lots of jewelry. And based on her clothing, which was a pink and purple striped sweater with long jean shorts, along with slip on boots that they called moccasins.
Yeah. Do you not know?
No, they did. It seemed very specific for what the picture looked like. But they called them moccasins. She did have a lack of tan lines, which led them to believe that she wasn't from the area because apparently everybody in the area at that time had them. Who knows? So they received tips that a woman matching the description had been seen the night before at 6:30 p.m. off northbound US 1. Her case was even featured on Unsolved Mysteries as well. Police never gave up on her case, amassing over 4,000 pages of investigative documents. That is insane. Like I have seen hundreds of pages. Like picture those 3-ring binders, like the extended. I've seen that full, but 4,000 pages is insane. That was the sighting of her was their only lead until 2020 using DNA analysis when she was identified as 18-year-old Wanda Dean Kirkham. She was never reported missing, and by the time she was identified, both her parents had died as well. I can't find very much information about her victim, except for she had run away from home to escape being sexually and physically abused by her, or not by, per her cousin, Brenda Chartraw. So she just needed to get away from home, and that's why she was never reported missing because she was a runaway.
Oh,
She was from Hornell, New York. That might have been why she didn't have tan lines. They were able to find more than that when they ran the DNA from her scene, and it connected to another murder that happened in April the following year in Tarrant County, Texas, and it was that of her killer, Robert Lynn Bradley. Robert, at the time of his murder, was 31. He was left in a ditch. I couldn't find anything about his history or his murder case. I'm not an investigative journalist, and this is not my full time job. I'm sure if I had more time, more legwork, I could have done it. But also, I don't care about that stuff for a murderer. Sorry. Murderer got murdered.
good.
There we go.
Trash took itself out.
Pretty much. And yes, I don't care that that's my opinion because in this case, it is what it is. I don't know if his murder was ever solved. I just know he himself was killed. So there we go. Moving on, Jodine Elizabeth Sarin was born in Glendale, California in 1967. She was known as Jody to friends and her family. She enjoyed making flower arrangements and she even earned a degree in floral design. She had a white horse named Sam and a cat named Angel. She loved helping others, especially senior citizens. She volunteered regularly and she had support from the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. She was one of 6 kids and she had lived independently for 10 years. Her parents bought a condo in Carlsbad, California, so she would be close to them. She did rely on her family some. Like she was independent, but she still relied on her family for some things because she was developmentally disabled, but not like incapacitated. She still had independence. She didn't drive, and that's why she relied on family, friends, and public transportation to get around. But other than that, at the age of 39, she was high functioning. But the family did still check on her. And on Valentine's Day 2007, her parents, Arthur and Lois, could not reach her on the phone. So they went over to her condo. When she didn't answer the door, they let themselves in because they had their own set of keys. Her father went into her bedroom to check on her. This part's really sad because the parents did this. They went into the bedroom to check on her and they saw a man on top of her daughter who was in her bed. And the father thought that he was walking in on an intimate moment on Valentine's Day between his daughter and a suitor. But he was like embarrassed, but also like a little bit irritated. And so he said, "Get dressed," and backed out to the living room with his wife, Lois, while they waited. No one came out of the bedroom. So they went back to check on their daughter. The man wasn't there anymore. Jody was, and she had been raped, beaten, and strangled. Isn't that devastating?
Yeah, I think I've heard that case before.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were no signs of forced entry, and it appeared that the front door was not visible from where the parents were staying in the living room. So he was able to slip out of the bedroom straight out the front door. So DNA was recovered and uploaded. There was no match in CODIS, and eventually the case went cold. It was picked back up in 2017 when Carlsbad detectives contacted Virginia based Parabon Nanolabs that specialized in DNA phenotyping. Do you know the difference between genotyping and phenotyping?
No.
Phenotyping is physical characteristics, and genotyping is genetic characteristics. So, this is the thing that phenotype is what determines like hair color, eye color, body stature, color of skin, freckles, no freckles. And so they're able to run your DNA and your genetic code can tell, like, that's what determines what you look like
And
why
that's
you
when
look
they
like your
print out the
parents.
picture that almost looks identical to your
Mhm,
DNA. I've
mhm.
seen that.
Yep. So they sent it there,
Wow.
and there was a mugshot based on the evidence left on the crime scene. This one was fair skinned with light eyes, light hair, and some freckles. And in 2018, they found their man. But again, it was another one that didn't have to face justice. Her killer was David Mebrito, who died by suicide in 2011. He had been a 38-year-old transient at the time of the murder, and he never made it into CODIS, but his relatives were. His DNA was able to be analyzed for confirmation as he had a sample collected previously because he resembled a suspect in another case. He died shortly after his sample was taken, and it was never processed, which means it was never uploaded into CODIS. You don't upload it into CODIS because you're not looking to connect to further crimes. Like, there's no point in putting a bunch of dead people into CODIS,
Right.
to put it that way. That's why there was a delay. But again, better late than never, and hopefully now she can rest in peace,
Yeah.
and her parents can move on. That one crushed me. I was
Yeah.
like,
He's going to have that image in his mind forever.
mhm. Like, not only that, you think that you're doing like the nice thing, like, oh, let me give you some privacy. I'm so sorry. Valentine's Day.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, not like any of these are pleasant.
Right.
I apologize. It brings me joy when they get closure. That's about it.
And when the killers die,
I'm not allowed to say that.
I am.
All right. Next up, Bradford Montgomery was a non emergency transport worker who was in a parking lot of Loma Linda University Medical Center emergency room on Valentine's Day, 1993. He saw there was a couple arguing in the parking lot around 3 p.m. The woman was crying. Then, before he knew what happened, the man pulled out a gun and shot her in the head. As she was falling, he fired again, this time in the stomach. And when she was on the ground, he fired a third time in the head again.
Good God.
The man then reached into the vehicle, grabbed a little boy, jumped into his car, and fled. Bradford attempted to follow the man, but the man was able to evade the chase. So Bradford turned back around to go help the woman, but she had died. The investigation showed that the murdered woman was Ignacia Manriquez, who was 29, and the little kid was Juan Jr., who they called Juanito. And that's so cute. He was only 4. He had been at the hospital. I saw both reported either for flu treatment or an earache. It was assumed that the suspect was her estranged boyfriend, Juan Manuel Navarro, who was also the father of her 3 children. Not husband, just boyfriend. The couple had met when they were in high school when they were 16, and they had been together until December 1992. Again, this murder happened in 1993. He broke things off. He decided he made a bad decision and started begging for her back. But she was like, no, dude, no. Like, I'm not going back to you. You broke up with me. We're done. Ignacia was now living at her mother's with the kids. But there was an altercation. And that's when she started waving around a restraining order that she pulled against him. And he said, no piece of paper is going to keep me from you. Because, yeah, paper only does so much.
He's right.
It was known that he was following her prior to the attack. And on the day of the murder, Juan's friend, Gerardo Martinez, said that Juan thought his ex was seeing another man and it made him jealous. He received a phone call from Juan saying he's going to be late to the party that was happening and finished the call by saying, the party's over. The search was on for Juan Jr. and Juan Sr., and 17 days after he was kidnapped, Juan Jr. was returned to the paternal grandparents by a third party, so not by Juan Sr. When police asked him what happened, he said, ketchup is everywhere.
Oh, no.
Right? Sweet little boy. Ignacia's family did not give up, though, and they spent almost every other weekend until 2010 when he was found, going down to Mexico to look for him. By that point, he had remarried and had another son. He was running his own construction business, and for all intents and purposes, no one knew what he had done 17 years before. He was brought back to the United States where he was found guilty of her murder, and he was sentenced to 25 years. Then he received an additional 5 years for personally using a firearm in the commission of the crime. He was not eligible for parole for 16 years and 8 months, and he got nothing for kidnapping his son. I did read in one recording that the son was affected by what happened, and developmentally, it stunted his growth. I don't know how much, like, it was only in one article where the family was interviewed, but it basically said, yeah, he's not mentally okay. The final case we're going to cover today happened in 1974 when Carla Walker, who was 17, had been in the passenger seat of her boyfriend Rodney McCoy's car, and this was after a Valentine's Day dance. She was a petite blonde who was friendly and smiling to all who encountered her. Rodney was the quarterback of the school football team. They had plans to enroll in Texas Tech together when they graduated. Carla knew that one day her and Rodney would be married and start a family. This case does not happen on actual Valentine's Day again, but on February 16th, but that's because it was when the Valentine's Day school dance occurred. So to me, it still counts.
Yeah, Valentine's Day just fell during the week, so they probably wanted to have it on a Friday or Thursday.
Yeah. So Rodney picked up Carla, who was wearing a powder blue prom dress, and they went off to the school. And the theme was love as a kaleidoscope. So cute. It was in their school's cafeteria. I think we had one school dance that was in the cafeteria, wasn't it? It was winter formal, wasn't it? I don't know why I'm asking you. We had a winter formal dance in our schools, but it wasn't the cafeteria, it was the gym.
Is this junior high school?
High school. Junior high, all of our dances were in the gym.
Yeah, I think we didn't have a cafeteria.
No, our cafeteria was outside. It was like
Yeah.
just the lunch area. No, so it was the
all the
gym,
gym. Yeah.
our giant
Everything.
gym
Yeah. And even at junior high, it was that gym too. Yeah.
with the mural on the wall.
Yeah. The stairs outside.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this one, again, it happened at the school because it was a Valentine's Day dance. It
Elementary
wasn't
school
like,
was cafeteria.
it
That's what elementary
was.
school.
Yes.
And then I had to do a big old speech. Speech class was also in there. They set
Yes.
up a stage.
Okay. See, I did speech therapy in a room off of there.
Okay.
For those who didn't know, I had
Our
a,
classes were all attached, kind of.
yeah, but I used to have a horrible lisp and I had to go through speech therapy with one of our mutual friends in elementary school to get rid of it.
And now you talk so good.
I do.
And I still mumble.
Well, it's because I was educated in elocution.
Well, I fit right in where we live now. So
Well, apparently we sound the same, so gotta love that small town accent. All right, so they went to the dance, and after the dance ended at 11:30 p.m., they went to Taco Bell. Sounds great.
yes.
And then to Ridgelea Bowling Alley, and because they had to run in and use the restroom, and they wanted like they were in the parking lot, and I'm gonna run in and use the potty, and then we're gonna sit in the car and
After Taco Bell.
oh, oh, didn't think about that part. I was thinking like a little potty and a little smooches, a little X's and O's.
Freshen up? Nope.
Oh, just kidding. That's the last we're gonna laugh on this one. Because when they got back to the car and started Xing and Oing, the passenger door was opened. So they were both leaning against it. So like she was leaning like,
Outside?
no.
Outside.
Like they were both inside the car. And like, you know how you're like both leaning against the same car
Yes.
door?
Yes.
And so somebody opened the door that they were leaning on. So
out.
they both fell out.
Oh.
Rodney, wait, how was this? Okay. So they both fell out and Rodney was struck on the head and he was groggy and bleeding and he had like a gun in his face. And then he heard 3 clicks while staring at the gun, having beaten him bloody. And he like blacked out now at this point because he was hit so hard in the head. And he woke up to watch Carla getting dragged away. And all she was yelling was, "Get my dad."
Oh.
Right? Like I said, this is the last we're going to be laughing.
Yeah.
When he came to, Carla and the suspect were gone. So like he was fading in and out of consciousness. He finally wakes up. He drove to the house, like her house, and like bloody head, runs inside to tell her family what happened. The dad goes back to the crime scene and all they saw was the magazine to a Ruger 22 caliber pistol. Okay. Of note, this is a specific. Okay. It was the magazine to a Ruger 22 caliber pistol. This particular magazine goes to a particular gun that has a magazine safety on it, which is the reason that the clicks happened. So if the magazine is not inserted into this firearm, there's like a little button on the inside that the magazine will push. And then when you pull the trigger, the action's able to engage. If the magazine's not there, the little button doesn't get pushed, which means when you pull the trigger, nothing happens. So because the magazine was out of the gun, which it's believed that when he struck Rodney in the head, that the magazine might have fallen out of the gun, that then when he was pulling the trigger without the magazine in the gun, it couldn't fire.
Right. So he realized it and clicked it in.
No.
Oh.
Like, so he hit him, magazine falls out on the ground. He doesn't realize that the magazine is no
'Cause
longer
he
in
never gets shot.
Mm-hmm. So even if there is a cartridge loaded in the chamber, the firing pin will never strike the cartridge because of the safety. It's the whole reason that we have safeties. So because the magazine was on the ground, it's believed that's why the gun never fired and why he pulled the trigger 3 times. But that's evidence.
Yeah.
You now know what type of gun was used. But that was all that was left at the scene. Carla, was found 3 days later, partially nude in a culvert in the area near Benbrook Lake. She had bruising on her neck, cuts, and abrasions. This I'm not sure is true because I saw it reported that she had been killed that night, but other reports said that she was kept alive for 2 days after her abduction, where she was tortured and raped and at some point injected with morphine. I couldn't find the court records that said exactly which one happened. I would just be remiss because I saw both reported equally multiple times.
Because you wouldn't be doing that in the culvert for 2 days. You'd have
No.
to dump her.
Hmm. And like, I don't know if she had any binding marks, like for being held. I believe she was killed that same day and just left in the culvert, personally, just based on from everything that I read. But like I said, anybody who decides to chime in, tell me I'm doing misinformation. I put the information out there and do with it what you will. Police kept the clothing that she was found with, which was her blue prom dress, or sorry, not prom dress, her little blue Valentine's dress. So they kept the clothing that she was found with, and it's a good thing because it gave them a lead. In the interim, the family was doing what they could to find the killer themselves. They would follow leads that were given to them, and on the anniversary every year, they would go to the bowling alley parking lot to see if anybody looked suspicious. Her brother Jim tried to become a police officer so he could become a detective to work on her case. But he had a congenital eye condition, so he had to drop out of the academy. Her father passed in 1987 from a heart attack, and her mother passed from Alzheimer's in 2015. Jim bought the family home in hopes that someone would go there to confess the murder. So he waited.
Wow.
Rodney moved to Alaska as soon as he graduated to work on oil rigs in an attempt to be as far from Fort Worth as possible as quickly as he could. But he did move back to Texas to live in Austin. The clothing Carla was wearing was properly preserved in paper bags this whole time, just waiting for technology. Paper. Biological evidence is paper. All of those movies and TV shows that put this stuff in plastic bags, I want to throw something at my TV screen.
I was going to ask you to tell everybody why paper instead of plastic.
So, everybody who's ever done anything in plastic that has the slightest bit of hydration of any sort knows that condensation forms. With condensation, you get bacteria production. Bacteria production destroys DNA. If you put it in plastic, you're destroying evidence. You could put drugs in plastic. You could put guns that you don't ever want to be processed for anything in plastic. You would never put anything that you want biological evidence processed off of in plastic ever. Pet peeve. It's like making my eye twitch just thinking about it. Just like spatter versus splatter.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Never in a forensic setting will blood ever be splatter. Spatter. Spatter, not splatter.
Do your research and learn how to pronounce the brands of guns, please.
That too. It is a Ruger.
Fellow podcasters.
Yes. It is a Ruger 22 caliber pistol, not a Luger. Luger is a type of ammunition. But anyway, back to the case. Which, by the way, if you think that we need to make stickers or something that say spatter, not splatter, just let us know. I think that might be one of our branding things.
That is cute.
Okay, back to the case. So technology did eventually catch up. The way that this all turned about was super crazy. Okay, the cost of doing DNA is a lot. It's like, I think I put the price in here. It's $18,000 per DNA sample. Oh, yeah. DNA processing is so much money, which is why there's such a backlog, because obviously government doesn't have a whole lot of money, and people think that we don't need any sort of funds whatsoever to do any of the work that we need to do. Super fun. So step in a man named Vincent Strange. He started a podcast called Gone Cold Podcast, Texas True Crime. He said he wanted his first story to be on Carla Walker's murder. Diane Kuykendall heard the podcast. She was intrigued as well because she had gone to school with Carla. She attended CrimeCon in Nashville, obviously not the one that just happened in 2024, but she made pamphlets about Carla's case that she handed to a man named Paul Holes, who most of us know from the true crime world. He became interested, so in 2019, he facilitated NBC's auction network to pay the $18,000 to have the DNA from her clothing tested. A California lab developed a full DNA profile from a stain on the strap of her bra that they uploaded into CODIS, but there was no match. Now, Holes and his producers hit up a lab in Texas to try genealogical mapping. That was also a no-go. Next stop was Othram in Woodlands outside Houston, and on July 4th, 2020, the call was made. they found a family tree match. It was one of three brothers with the last name McCurley. So that whole section that I just told you was from Texas Monthly. And this is what happens when you don't put yourself behind a paywall. I can give you a shout out. So thank you, author Skip Collinsworth, for your August 2022 story. Although never call a magazine a clip again, because he did say that. Oh, clip is not a magazine. A magazine is not a clip. Never, ever, ever call a firearm magazine a clip. Clip is what you use to load a magazine. You're getting a lot of firearms like tips here. Just, again, don't make my eye twitch. But please and thank you. But side note, when we start making money, I might be more inclined to pay for more in-depth information since I'm out of pocket. I'm on a budget. And the only thing I pay for is New York Times.
More than I pay for.
Now, the McCurleys, sorry, was an initial suspect in her disappearance. Glenn Samuel McCurley, who was a truck driver, he had been questioned because he owned the same brand model of .22 caliber pistol that was the type that accepted the magazine that was left at the scene. He also lived a mile from where it happened. When he was interviewed, he said that night his wife had gone to West Texas to visit family. He said his gun had been stolen over a month prior. I'm sorry for my voice. I'm mid-asthma attack. But I got this. He said because he had a conviction for car theft, he wasn't allowed to own a gun, so he couldn't report that it was missing. He had a record that he owned the gun. Okay. That was the only infraction on Glenn's record, was the car theft. Glenn and his wife, Judy, had married in 1963. They lost their oldest son, Craig, when he was hit and killed by a drunk driver in 1988 at the age of 24. They had another son, Roddy, who was himself married with children. At 77, he was a pillar of the community, and everyone believed that the police must have the wrong man. They went to his door and asked if he'd be willing to give a DNA sample for elimination purposes for her murder, and he agreed. 11 days later, it was confirmed that he was the donor of the sample from her bra. He was arrested September 21st, 2020, and during an interview, he claimed that he never knew Carla. But after more talking, he finally said, I did it. He said that on that night, he drank a lot, started driving, and wound up at the bowling alley. He said he heard a woman screaming and found Carla with Rodney in the car, and he went to help. He admitted to beating Rodney and then taking Carla to get her somewhere safe. In gratitude, she slept with him before he dropped her off, and then he blacked out. After they told him that she was a virgin and they doubted his story, he went further, saying that after sex, he started choking her because he was afraid that she would tell on him, but that she was still alive when he drove away. He would not admit to anything more, and he pled not guilty, with his lawyers claiming that police coerced him into talking and refuting Othram's testing. That's the one who did the genealogical mapping. During the trial, the police revealed a shocker. When they searched Glenn's home after his arrest, they found the allegedly stolen gun hidden in a compartment above a door. On the third day of trial, August 2021, he pled guilty to the murder and kidnapping, and he was sentenced to life. When questioned in prison, he said he only pled guilty to stop the trial because he figured he would be found guilty anyway, but that he never killed anyone. Glenn died in Telford State Prison in Bowie County in 2023 at the age of 80 from natural causes. In August 2024, legislation was proposed called the Carla Walker Act to provide federal funding to law enforcement to use for improved technology to process more DNA for cold cases, as the DNA in this case had to be privately funded. And since I am dying, that is the end of this episode. So we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, y'all.
The views and thoughts expressed in this podcast are ours alone and do not represent the thoughts or opinions of anyone else. The information presented is for general information purposes only. We are not liable for anything you do with this information.